Hello, everyone, and welcome to UGASports Rumors versus Facts. I am Blaine Gilmer here with Jed May and Trent Smallwood, and we are covering all things Georgia football, recruiting related, as always, coming off the NFL draft, which has tremendous recruiting implications because it was basically a weekend-long infomercial for Georgia and Kirby Smart's development. So, guys, first off, how was both of your weekends? And then let's get right into what this draft meant for Georgia.
Good weekend. Played some golf. Didn't hurt myself again like I had before, so it was great. Can't complain.
That's it. No injuries for
no
a
injuries.
round of golf.
No injuries to report.
That's it.
The key is, what was your score?
I don't. That's not important.
You don't even keep score, do you?
That's it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, the weekend was good. Like you said, it was filled with announcements for Georgia football players going to the NFL, and a record with the most taken and the most defensive taken in the first round. So it was just a big weekend for Georgia all around, especially moving forward, being able to use that on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, I mean, Kirby Smart literally got the opportunity to 5 different times interact with recruits after his guy had been taken in the first round. So Trayvon Walker, number 1 overall, you get to, FaceTime guys in the green room. Hey, our guy just went number 1. Hey, this could be you next time. And then, then it happens again at 12, and then at 22, and then at 28, and then at 32. So, with those guys being out in Las Vegas and being able to communicate, and we'll go into specific guys in a little while because we got some vault questions about it. But Trent, that's just you can't put a price on that. That's the TV coverage that they got all weekend, and then the actual experience and taking advantage of that experience that Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann, Trey Scott, and the like did.
Yeah, and I think it's the big part is defensive line, because you're looking at we always said Trey Scott needs a big draft, because he's always had success, I guess, developmentally, like with Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, taking those lower ranked 4 stars and develop them, but he never had that first round pick, and now he had 3 of them in the same draft. So moving forward, that's going to be big with just that pitch, because Schumann's had some. Georgia's had some wide receivers. Georgia's had some defensive backs, but the defensive line was really a key part that was missing with those first round picks, and Scott was able to put 3.
No doubt. It was a big night for Trey Scott, and kind of a bunch of different narratives out there about Kirby Smart and other coaches on the staff totally shattered with that night, come on the heels of a national championship season. Jed, I want to know your interactions just in general. We'll get into specifics in a little while, just in general with some guys after the draft and kind of what that meant to him. And also, I would love your opinion on George Pickens' ensemble when he saw himself getting drafted.
It's the ensemble and the posture of just like the slumped over, just watch. I mean, it's incredible. It's one of the best.
Something about it reminded me of Squidward from SpongeBob SquarePants. I don't know the body shape. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah, that was awesome. So yeah, Pickens is probably going to go for about 3 touchdowns when he plays the Browns next year. That's neither here nor there. Anyway, yeah, and well, it's funny because about 8. When Jordan Davis goes about 13 the other night, I texted Jamal Jarrett and said, hey, man, I'm sure Kirby Smart and those guys are going to be hitting you up later, right? And then he responded and said they already have. And I was like, of course. Like, you shouldn't expect anything less with Kirby Smart and the guys, right? They're not going to let a single second pass without getting in touch with these guys. And it's like you said, Blaine, or like you posted on the vault the other night, they're FaceTiming Quay Russaw in between picks from the draft. And guys like that, I mean, it's like Trent said, there's – even going back to January, all of the constant ESPN publicity from the playoff, and then NFL Network at the Combine, and then there's so much free publicity that has flooded this program over the past 4 months. I mean, I don't know that any program has ever had a stretch like that where their name has constantly been in the limelight so much for such positive reasons.
Yeah, I would love to be able to see some kind of research firm calculate how much free media that Georgia has tabulated over the last few months. The numbers are got to be astronomical, especially with people having that hunger for live playoffs, after a year ago and things like that with COVID and everything. So it's been a huge wave for Georgia that they continue to ride here, and specific guys that we'll talk about, but there's some rekindled interest in guys as well. Maybe guys who had kind of, maybe not been looking at Georgia as hard. And then that you see that Trent is just undeniable. 15 guys. I think it's somewhere between 135, $150 million worth of NFL contracts coming due. Not that, everybody in the world is, just 100% dollar sign, and that's the only thing. But it goes a long way when you're able to say, hey, I know there's NIL out there, but look, 135 to 150 million dollars worth of contracts just signed out of 15 Georgia players that got drafted. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people look at you look at Trayvon Walker's numbers, and you're like, hey, I'm kind of similar to Trayvon Walker. I don't necessarily want to be in a defense where I'm not going to get a lot of sacks, or I'm not going to do this, and then all of a sudden you hear his name pop up number 1 in the NFL draft, and you're like, hey, I might want to reconsider that. So I think there's a lot of prospects out there that definitely will reconsider after that draft, because yeah, there's nil money and there's all this stuff that's going around, but when you can preach those first round draft picks, there's a lot more zeros behind the dollar sign than there is in that nil money.
Yeah, and with this 2023 class specifically, a lot of these guys are already, like it or not, folks, they're already getting engaged by whether it's these collectives, big time boosters, whatever, of throwing out there, here's what you could expect if you came this way. That's just the way it is now. So for beforehand, Kirby Smart and those guys probably had some coach speak type stuff to say, hey, there's a whole lot more zeros and commas on the other side, but now they have actual empirical data that they can go and say, hey, look at this. This is what we were able to do. Plus, here's what these guys did. You remember colleges, the staffs, they can't set up the NIL deals, but they can sure promote the NIL deals that their guys have gotten. So, we say they can't set them up. We all know what's going on, but that's how it's supposed to be done. And Georgia has that data to refer back to now. So definitely a big weekend, and we'll see how it all plays out. One thing that I did want to compare that some people pointed out is Georgia had 15 drafted, Texas had 0. So if you're relating everything in college football and NFL football and everything goes back to how does this impact Arch Manning? I don't know. Does that impact Arch Manning? It would impact me if I saw the two main schools that I'm supposedly looking at. One gets 15 drafted, the other gets 0. That has an impact on me. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you would think so, because we were just talking about how much free publicity Georgia got. How many times did you hear Texas's name mentioned this weekend? I mean, I watched more of the draft probably than I ever have before, and I didn't hear anything about Texas. So and I'm sure Kirby and them, we don't know as much here because Arch is basically a ghost, but I'm sure Kirby Smart and those guys were trying to get in touch with Arch Manning too and say, hey, if you're watching the draft right now, you're hearing about Georgia. So yeah, I think it had a big impact.
Trent?
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, and I know Arch, they're a smart family. They're doing the homework, but that's part of the homework. I mean, that is you're looking at your future, and I know you look at your schools, Georgia and Texas, and I know it's not the quarterback position necessarily, but Texas has 0 guys go in the draft, and that is.
And I think Cincinnati had 8. I mean, you got, and
that's just
Louisiana, where Billy Napier came from, had 5 or 6. I mean,
it's kind of looking at, it's not necessarily talking about the quarterback position, but it's looking at your supporting cast. What do you have around you? It's development. I mean, are you being developed? And one thing that showed is Georgia is developing. Trayvon Walker wasn't a 5-star at Rivals. He was a 4-star. Jordan Davis, 4-star. Devontae Wyatt was a 3-star at one time, 4-star coming out of JUCO. This is development of 4-star guys. Quay Walker's a 4-star. So, I mean, it showed a lot in this draft that how Georgia's able to develop. You know, I talked about it. I told y'all, I think I wrote an article at UGASports about 5 stars under Kirby Smart. And I said it could change in this class, but he didn't. Not one of his 5 stars got drafted in the first round. It was all 4 stars, I believe.
Rhett
So
Womack says UG had more first-round picks in 2022 than UT had first-rounders since 2013. So that is definitely something to put in the chamber there for Georgia, so to speak, when you're going after
and another thing
after
Jermaine
analyzing
Johnson.
this arch recruitment.
And Jermaine Johnson, it was basically, developed by Georgia and spent his last year at Florida State because he wanted to be able to rush the passer a little more because of the guys Georgia had on campus. And one of the guys he transferred because of is Adam Anderson, who also could have had his name called on day one if he wasn't going through all the legal issues. So it was a big day.
Brett Weimer asks how much of this publicity will be outdone by NIL deals that are going on. Brett, I think this is the best possible. There is no school that has a better counter to the NIL than what Georgia just had. It's unbelievably impressive. I mean, that is if there's anything that can neutralize some of these mega NIL deals that are going on out there, then Georgia just did it this past weekend. So that is kind of our news notes recap version there of an NFL draft, and we're going to have more specific things come out of it here as we get to our vault questions. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and give us your questions if you're not a member of the UGA Vault and have already submitted yours over there. Also, while you're here, this channel just keeps growing, guys, and that's because of you. We appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you interacting with us here. We love to answer questions. We love to have kind of some banter about recruiting. It's great stuff. So do us a favor, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Also, hit the like button. That greatly helps us. Share it on social media. Really appreciate you guys doing that. So without further ado, Jed, we're going to start it off here with our vault questions.
Yeah, this says from Jay Doggy. Can you guys name a player or two that the NFL draft had a heavy influence on for UGA's benefit?
Yeah, I mean, we as a staff kind of went around and made the round, so to speak, talking to guys. Jed, you already mentioned Jamal Jarrett, and I didn't know you were already. I had texted him that night too, and he's like, "Yeah, Kirby and Schumann hit me up as the first round was going on." Another guy, a couple guys that they did that with, I know they were in contact with Jaden Wayne during the draft. Obviously, Trayvon Walker, a very similar type player there. So they could say, hey, he went number one. That's a guy, CJ Allen, they were in contact with, Samuel and Pimba. So, the defensive side of the ball, Trent, that was highlighted in the first round, they were contacting those guys. Quay Rusall, they were going right down the list and in the green room there saying, hey, look what we're doing right now.
Oh, yeah. I bet there was a lot of pre-written text going into this. I bet they were well prepared because, I mean, you knew Trayvon was going to go high. I mean, you knew Jordan Davis was likely going to go in the first round. Some of the other guys, you were more question marks around, but I bet they had a lot of, pre-written text to guys saying, hey, what is better way to send it out than in the green room itself? FaceTiming those guys from the room itself, from saying, hey, this could be you in 3 or 4 years. I mean, that, we talk about NIL, that's important, but this is another level. And like you said, that very well could offset, if anything can offset NIL, what Georgia did this weekend could.
We need shirts that say NIL because I like and say it in a certain way because Trent's the only person I know that refers to it as NIL instead of the letters NIL. I love it.
Hey, I'm going NIL. I'm going Arch. I'm going all crazy today.
That's it. We need to come up with some kind of way to phonetically spell out NIL and put it on a shirt. I'm sure that people at UGA Sports
NIL zero. It was what
yeah, we'll just put a big zero on there.
Zero.
How many? and then put a zero. It could be a double entendre there. Have all kinds of meanings. But no, we're it's good stuff when it comes to in the green room there. I mean, I can't imagine being a high school student, right? A high school student athlete. And all of a sudden, I'm watching the NFL draft. I see Kirby Smart pat his guy on the back. And 5 seconds later, when his guy walks to the stage, he's FaceTiming me. I mean, that would be a surreal deal if you're recruiting it, and it has to be impactful, Jed. I mean, that has to be something that you're like, oh, this guy took the time out of one of the happiest moments, not only of his player's life, but this is one of the happiest moments of coaches' lives, right? Seeing their players fulfill their ultimate dream, and yet they're already thinking about the next wave of players as well.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. And we were talking about how impressive it is for these recruits to see what's going on at the draft and stuff. It means something to those guys because, like you said, think of Trey Scott, and he discovers Jordan Davis in North Carolina, and he's coached him for 4 years from a lower 4-star on our rankings to the 12th or 13th pick of the draft. Trey Scott does that. That journey's complete, and then he's instantly hitting up Jamal Jarrett saying, "Hey, you could be next." I mean, that means a lot to those guys when to hear that kind of thing from these coaches. And yeah, it's one of those weekends where a lot of needles get moved and a lot of pitches get made, and a lot of, like Trent said, a lot of pre-written text gets sent with the graphics. And how many times have y'all seen those graphics? The most players ever drafted. How many times have you seen those this weekend? Because they sent them out to, I think, every recruit under the sun just to get that point across.
No doubt. And, when it comes down to other guys, before we go on our next question that were affected, two guys that Georgia's kind of rekindled, that's either mutual, that their interest has been rekindled in Georgia. Georgia has reached out a little bit harder, especially after this draft. Nichols Harbor, Neo Avery. Those are two guys you need to keep an eye on. Neo Avery was at one point quarterback / tight end. Now he's looking to play the defensive side of the ball. Who knows? Training may have seen those contract numbers and been like, hey, there's a lot more guys playing defense, and there's only one quarterback on the field. So I'm going to use my 6'5" frame and go over there to that side. So Nichols Harbor, though, I put out there today that, listen, I know all the stuff going on with Adam Anderson, but it doesn't change the stuff that when Adam Anderson came out of high school, he's one of the freakiest athletes that people had seen, right? I mean, he's just an unbelievable athlete. Nichols Harbor may be an even more elite athlete. I mean, the man is 6'5", 225 to 230 pounds, runs 10.3 in the 100. That is flying, Trent.
Yeah, that's really unheard of from a guy that size. And and Kirby and company's had success with the edge, and I know they didn't necessarily put anybody in the draft this time with edge guys, but still, they've.
Well, I mean, Trayvon, I think, is going to play more edge in the NFL.
But as far as like outside linebacker Jack or like an Adam Anderson type, but they have had success, before. They had Lorenzo Carter and Bellamy and all them guys go out and. But yeah, I just Harbor's a freak athlete. Just turn on the film and watch him. And a guy at 6'5", 225, 230 should not be running that fast. It's just, he's just a freak athlete.
Yeah, so that lots of guys' interests were piqued. Especially we put out a note. Samuel Mpemba, guy at IMG Academy. He's played both sides of the ball. Really was very highly sought after a tight end too, but now he's looking to make that transition. So it seems like it's more in vogue to play that edge defender. And Georgia and Coach Uzo Duribe very much so taking advantage of that, trying to get involved. So I definitely think it moved the needle with a lot of guys. This one's pretty fun, Jed. I'm going to let you answer it.
What's up, dog? Is Bulldog Bob, also known as Jim Donnan?
I'm going to refrain from answering because
I can honestly tell you that I don't even know. But I highly doubt it's Jim Donnan. I mean,
yeah.
I
don't listen. Bulldog Bob remains a mystery. Okay.
I do have one thing. When Bulldog Bob pops on the vault like you did a couple weekends ago after G-Day, then you pay attention, because that's the first time in working here I'd seen Bulldog Bob pop on the recruiting board for a post of his own. So.
And
other than
Jim Donnan struggles to to get on there, and he don't want to type. I promise you that.
Yeah,
he said he don't even like to read that crap.
Exactly. So we're lucky old ball coach gets on with Roddy and Dane every Tuesday. Which, by the way, tune in to this channel tomorrow. Coach Donnan And Dane and Roddy, I'm sure, will be talking about all the breakdown of the NFL draft and everything that transpired there. Next question we have is from Sandbar Bathroom.
What's the evaluation on Rico Flores? Seems like a high floor type.
Well, lucky you should say that. I'm going to ask about the evaluation. I'm going to put the Rico Flores film on for us here. So as this kind of plays, Trent, when you're looking at these receivers, this is a guy who, and if I can actually get it on the screen here, there we go. This is a guy who he does stuff, as you can see early on in this film, in the return game. He's a very smooth route runner. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Dom Blaylock coming out of high school. Like he's that smooth guy, probably more athletic than he maybe looks immediately on the hoof, and just finds way. Like when he's running this post route right here, that looks like Dom Blaylock versus Auburn to me. I mean, he's a guy who can take it over the top, but he's just a smooth football player, it seems like.
Yeah, it looks like he has. He's quick out of his breaks. He's, he can obviously catch. But yeah, he is very similar to Dom. It looks like he might have a little bit more explosiveness than Dom, because Dom was never the fastest guy. He was just.
That's why I said smooth operator. Yeah. Like it seems like their hips are very fluid. They get in and out of breaks, like you said. But this guy does have some straight line getaway that Dom. Like I said, Dom didn't look like that all the time out of high school, but in college, continually Dom would find himself in that freshman year, especially getting behind the defense. So I think that's something these guys share.
Well, that's what and we always talk about. There's track speed and there's football speed, and Dom's one of those guys that could create separation, similar to what I'm seeing here. You can create separation. You look, you look a whole lot faster than you are. You can burn a 4-3 corner. If you're an elite route runner and you're smooth in your breaks. So, he definitely great route runner. Not afraid to catch the ball over the middle either.
Yeah. So when you're talking about a guy that when the question said high floor right there, I think that's a great characteristic of him, because you're able to, probably. A lot of these guys, with the way they train now, Trent, and as experienced they are with the 7-on-7s and all that, it just seems like these guys are ready, especially from the production standpoint as a receiver earlier.
Yeah, and with his route running, that's what made Dom able to play as a freshman. So you're looking at more of a high floor and high ceiling guy, because you got a guy who can play immediately, and you got a guy who can really turn into something special when he get on campus. So I think if Dom wouldn't have had the knee injury that set him back, and then another, and I think Dom would have, he was on his way to have a big career, and Flores could be similar to that.
Jed, you spoke to Flores, so tell us what's kind of the latest in his recruitment. How what's his feelings towards UGA right now?
Yeah, Georgia's right in it. I was honestly, when he dropped that top 5 back in February, Georgia was a little bit of a, not shocking ad, but it was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But yeah, he got up. First time with Brian McClendon in person, they watched film and kind of went down over, a lot of that little stuff y'all were just talking about. McClendon gave him some tips on route running and things he could do better there. And the centerpiece of McClendon's pitch is basically, look, we're low at receiver. We're going to have guys leaving the program. You have a chance to come in and play right away as a freshman. That's kind of the centerpiece of McClendon's pitch right now. So Georgia's in it. Ohio State and Notre Dame are 2 other programs up at the top, which obviously Ohio State, speaking of what Georgia did at the draft, what Ohio State did, having
at the receiver position,
Wilson Olave and then Jamison Williams, former Ohio State guy, was also very impressive to those guys. So, but yeah, Georgia's right in it. He's coming back for an official, I believe, June 17th weekend is what he told me. And then he's committing on July 3rd. So Georgia's right in it. He's got the top 5. I think Georgia is kind of in the upper group of that. And then we'll see how the official goes and if they can lock it down.
And speaking of officials, I don't know if we mentioned earlier that Jamal Jarrett, he's coming the 10th to the 12th of June. So we started to learn some of these official visits. Of course, we've known for a while that CJ Allen and Justice Haynes, those guys are coming the first weekend in June, the 3rd to the 5th. So keep your eyes peeled for that over at the Vault. That's another reason to be a subscriber to UGAsports.com. We have to fill you in when those official visits are taking place and all of those good things, kind of behind the scenes stuff. And posted that note today on Nichols Harbor and on Neo Avery. So lots of good reasons to be over there. And one of our favorite people over there, Jed, is Scuffletown Dog.
Old Scuff. When we, Georgia, get Arch, who do you think might join him? You can go Disney Dog for a few minutes. It will not be held against you by me.
Trent, you want to go Disney Dog?
Trent doesn't have to go. He's already there.
Trent's already predicted Arch 3 separate times to Georgia. So on this very program.
I haven't put my Futurecast in yet.
Exactly. Trent's got to go drop that Futurecast for Arch real quick. No, but when so Scuffleton says, when we Georgia get Arch, who do you think might join him? Guys like Justice Haynes and Arch Manning are really good friends. And although Justice Haynes is, presumed Georgia, I will tell you for a fact that there were schools as of a couple of weeks ago really leaning on him, trying to make him make decisions. But that would just be icing on the cake if they could get Arch first, maybe. Because, guys, we keep hearing that sometime this month, the decision could come. I mean, just out of the blue, nowhere. But it is a very, very closely protected recruitment. But guys like Justice Haynes, guys like in the 2024 class, KJ Bolden is looking at what Arch Manning's doing. Hakeem Williams, a receiver in this class, already is loving Georgia. He could be a guy that comes into line. Heck, guys on defense. It may put the guys on defense over the top, like Tamarian Parker and people like that who are close, just because it is a movement. I explained to somebody the other day, it's like Hulkamania, right? Okay. Hulk Hogan may have not been the best in-ring wrestler of all time, but that movement is like unmatched. There was a whole thing behind it. Arch Manning, the same thing. Who knows if he's better than a Dylan Rowell or something like that, but nobody else has that same hype around him that Arch Manning does, for sure.
Yeah, and elite guys want to play with elite guys, and a lot has changed in this. With this 7-on-7, all these guys know each other. I mean, they're traveling and playing against each other and going to camps with each other, and I mean, these guys know each other. I've never seen like a group of kids from Georgia go down to Florida and and they're talking like they're best friends. They just they know each other. I mean, and not only are they, I guess, seeing each other at these camps, but they're also talking on the phone, planning visits together, doing stuff like that. So elite guys want to play with elite guys, and I think you're seeing, you see Georgia land a lot of these guys, and yes, a lot to do with Kirby Smart and his staff with the relentless attitude on the recruiting trail, but also a lot has to do with elite players want to play with elite players, and Arch Manning, that's no different. He's going to bring in talent with his name and with his number one ranking and his talent at the quarterback position. People are going to want to play with him. People wanted to play with Jake Fromm when he came to Georgia. You see the haul he brought in with him. It's no different with Arch Manning. It's probably a little different because there's probably a little more nationwide. But yeah, you're going to see guys follow, and this could stem all the way to the 25 class. This is not just 23, 24, 25. You're going to see it stem for the next 3 classes if Georgia's able to land him.
I mean, Jed, you also have to look too at guys who are being closely recruited by Texas as well, like Reuben Owens and TJ Shanahan, right? Because if Arch were to pull the trigger to come to Georgia, they may say, well, hold on now. I know that I'm in the state of Texas over here, but that may look a whole lot more appealing now.
Well, what's Texas' pitch? Hey, you come be our first draft pick in 3 years.
Yeah, and I think that's the question with Arch, because okay, Justice Haynes, Georgia feels good about Justice Haynes. Hakeem Williams, Georgia feels pretty good about Hakeem Williams. It's the guys that Georgia isn't necessarily not in it, but like Reuben Owens. If Reuben Owens committed tomorrow, I wouldn't say it was Georgia. But does that change things? Does Georgia get back in it with those Brandon Ennis's and Santana Flemings of the world if Arch were to commit? TJ Shanahan, guys like that. That I think is even offensive linemen. I mean, we've talked about offensive linemen recruiting on the show. Does that draw in a Caden Proctor type to want to come block for Arch or something like that? So I think those are the questions that you really start to look at. Should Arch commit? Who then starts to come to Athens for visits? Who starts to plan these officials? Who does Arch generate buzz from that there maybe hadn't been before?
Deuce Robinson.
Deuce Robinson could be a guy. You talk about Madden Sanker, right? Madden Sanker at one point was looked to be like a Georgia lock, but now heavily recruited by Miami, by Michigan State, by a lot of programs, North Carolina, that are out there. But if Arch were to pull the trigger this month and come, Madden Sanker would say, well, might as well just stay home and do something like that. So it could have an impact on a ton of guys. The fact is that recruitment, not necessarily listen, Arch is the number 1 overall player in the class. I think that's a warranted ranking. I think he's a very, very good player. Do I know if he's the best quarterback prospect that I've seen in the last 20 years or anything? I'm not ready to say that yet. But is he the most unique in terms of the set of circumstances and the everything that comes around Arch? Yeah, it's totally, totally different. And if people don't get that in this day and age of marketing, NIL, and everything that goes on around it, it is a unique opportunity that some school is going to have a cash cow on their hands pretty much, because you talk about TV ratings, you talk about the primetime games, you talk about being able to sell certain sponsorships. I mean, it's unbelievable. The different kind of tentacles that'll have outside of what happens between the white lines, guys. So that's definitely something that everybody. And by the way, that Hulkamania thing I just said, will we get sued if we make like Archamania shirts and put them in the Hulk in that same font, but like put it in like red and black with white? I think if he commits to Georgia, we got to do that. Maybe we could collaborate with Arch on the money on that deal. Who knows?
I can see it now. ESPN Game Day guest speaker, Peyton Manning. ESPN guest speaker, Eli Manning. I mean, you're just going to draw it all from different angles.
You get Kirby to wear a Archamania shirt and just rip it like Hulk Hogan used to down the middle. I mean, goodness gracious.
And on the back, say nil with a big 0.
we got to trademark it. We got to stop talking about it. People are going to steal the idea. Oh man, that's good stuff. All right, Pollock 47, Jen.
Yep, saw an article today about Kirby having an open door policy with NFL personnel and how that was uncommon for many schools. Why would coaches not have that policy?
Yeah, some coaches probably worried a little bit about, maybe insecure about their program or something like that. Of how, because coaches talk, they're like, oh, well, guess what? Kirby has 0 craps given about what any of those guys think of his program. So why not? Hey, come on in if you want to. And all that does is help establish that relationship that's already really good. I mean, you saw what the Green Bay general manager, I think it was, said when people asked him, hey, why do you draft so many Georgia Bulldogs? He said that is as close of an environment as you'll come to an NFL franchise. That's what came out of his mouth. And, they certainly believe that. They drafted Eric Stokes in the first round, drafted Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt in the first round. So, honestly, they believe that. But, Trent, I mean, can you think of any other reason why other schools may not have that policy?
No, I mean, I know that, a head coach at a college team is very, I mean, their time is all, they don't have much time in a day. But Kirby is one of those ones that, he works and don't sleep, I don't think, or he might sleep in his office. I'm not sure. But, I mean, he's willing to talk to anybody at any time. And that's just, the type of guy. He's football 24/7. And I guess that's what you sacrifice of being a head coach. But some head coaches don't see it that way. Some head coaches are more, family oriented, or, there's time when I have to, my office hours are this, I got to cut off the phone at this. But Kirby works. That's just one thing about Kirby is he is constantly working. He's constantly recruiting. He's constantly talking to NFL reps. I mean, he's just, 100% football. And I think at any given day, and I wouldn't think he would ever leave Georgia or anytime soon, but NFL GM would give him an opportunity to coach at the next level if he wanted to do that, and because he is well respected among the NFL franchises.
Yeah, and I think Kirby would be better prepared than than even a Spurrier or a Saban were, because college football is so much more similar to the NFL than it used to be when those guys tried to make the jump.
Yep, and I mean, you see, Belichick's always is at Georgia's pro day, and him and Kirby are that they talk, and then you see the relationship they've built with Green Bay. How they feel like Georgia's program is the closest thing to the NFL when it comes to practices and development and stuff like that. So. He's just building these relationships up, and it's not necessarily him looking for a job. It's just his work ethic, his work ethic on developing his players, his work ethic recruiting, and his work ethic getting his players ready to do what they did this past weekend and have 15 guys drafted.
I mean, it's kind of like our own, Jed May's work ethic. He gets already promoted to national analyst today. So we got Jed. He's working with the big rivals now, not just UGA. Jed's worldwide now. He's going all over the place.
We got to have a nickname for Jed. Like, I don't even know. Neil,
Big Neil,
Big Neil,
Big Neil, Jed.
Big Neil.
No, so we're Jed's gonna be going all over the state of Georgia. Speaking of working hard, guys, and being basically an expert on Georgia high school football, and that'll help our coverage here at UGA Sports even more. So big news, and congratulations, Jed. If I had like the fancy applause thing, rigged up on my board here, I'd play you the fake applause, man. But that's awesome.
I can imagine it. You gotta
golf clap
when Roddy doesn't pay you. You got to do something to pay the bills. So
that's it.
So when the national desk comes calling, you just got to pick up the phone.
You're like, I'm tired of eating ramen noodles. Got to do something here.
As long as I'm invited on the Vegas trips, I don't care.
Vegas trip will work for booze, is what Jed said. No, that's good stuff, man. Congratulations on that. Now we got Harley Dog 80.
How much of an impression did the draft make on 23 and 24 recruits? Any Futurecast coming our way with 1, 2, 3, 4 exclamation points? Very enthusiastic.
Futurecast. I mean, the Futurecast that I think, that we've had in there for a while, I think are sufficient for the time being. But I think you'll see some more Futurecast start rolling in once we get towards that first weekend in June. Official visits coming out. A lot of those guys are going to have, Georgia's going to have that first crack really at the official visits, because not many guys take those official visits in April or May, like Justin Rhett did back for G-Day and things like that. So I think that's when you'll see that new wave of official visits coming through. But we've already talked in length about the 2023 and 2024 recruits that were impressed by the draft. I just really don't think that there literally, I would venture to say, if I had to put a number on it, I would say of the 3, 4, and 5-star recruits out there, I would say probably 85 to 90% watched the NFL draft, or at least the first round. So that's why I'm saying that coverage was invaluable.
Yeah, I mean, and you see all the highlights and hear from all those guys. Even with Kirby and Kobe Dean on First Take, I guess it was Thursday morning, like stuff like that. When you have an event like the draft that you don't get during the season or even during the off season outside of the draft, all that stuff just adds up to I mean, you couldn't. We were talking earlier, if you could put a number on it, I don't think you can buy just all the positive press that Georgia has gotten from all these programs, or from all these, all this media coverage over the past few months.
I mean, Kirby Smart had the king of hyperbole, Stephen A. Smith, call him one of the greatest college football coaches of all time, sitting on stage beside Nakobe Dean, who very unceremoniously fell to the 3rd round. But I mean, there's a reason Stephen A. Smith gets paid buckets of money by ESPN. I mean, people, warranted or not, people listen to that stuff, and guys saying, you know what, maybe Kirby Smart is one of the greatest football coaches of all time. I mean, that's just the kind of stuff that you can't script, you can't pay for, like Jed was saying.
Definitely. And the two things that you heard kind of coming into this past season was 1980, Georgia couldn't win a national championship, and Kirby Smart doesn't develop his players. And I think both of those have been put to, kind of, you can't really talk about that anymore because obviously what Georgia's achieved in the past 3 or 4 months is, records. It's and just all of the people, Stephen A. and then you heard it all on draft night, and Mel Kiper and all. I mean, those guys are just raving about Kirby, raving about Georgia's program, and it's just, if you're a junior, senior in high school, or you're rising junior, senior in high school, and you're listening to this, and you're saying, "Golly, I mean, I need to go check out this program," even if you haven't, visited Georgia. It's just the the constant praise Georgia's receiving is only going to help Kirby, and Kirby didn't need much help. So,
no, I mean, when you talk about narratives getting buried, the only thing that got buried worse on the weekend was Mel Kiper Jr. by Twitter and by Booger McFarland, because literally one of the worst things, one of the funniest things that happened on the draft, guys, was they were talking about Quay Walker, right? and Mel Kiper goes on this rant. Oh, Green Bay reached for Quay Walker, and then Booger McFarland follows it up 5 seconds later. I think Quay Walker could be a Hall of Famer before his career is over with. I'm like, there's great chemistry and consistency going on here with ESPN. So that was always fun stuff. But you could really tell, I think, that Mel Kiper Jr. didn't watch a Georgia game all year.
Yeah, and I think I think there's a lot of people that get those drafts. Like, I'm not saying Mel Kiper Jr. is one, but are just stat watchers. You look at Trayvon Walker's stats, and you're like, how could he ever get drafted ahead of Hutchinson? You just looking at stats. Obviously, Trayvon Walker shouldn't have been number one pick. But if you're looking at a program evaluating upside and your ceiling and just your pure athleticism and what you showed, Trayvon Walker is a much better player when it comes to that. So his upside is much higher, and I think there's a lot of stat watchers out there that saw Quay Walker and it's like, why ain't Nakobe Dean get drafted that high? But Quay Walker is 6'2" and 235, 240 pounds, whatever he is, and much better size, what you're looking for in NFL. And his combine numbers wasn't bad either. So I think just a lot of stat watchers you see on ESPN sometimes.
Yeah, and these guys that we talked to, in Pimba, when I talked to him, talked to CJ Allen, talked to Jaden Wayne, that was a point that all those guys made, is that one reason these Georgia guys are so successful is because of who they compete against every day in practice. And that's something that doesn't show up in the stat sheet, as you pointed out. And that is one of the reasons that Trayvon Walker got drafted number one overall. So it is definitely good times for Georgia football recruiting as we head towards official visits. Like I said, Justice Haynes, CJ Allen, those guys coming in town for that first weekend. Jamal Jarrett, the 10th through the 12th. Jed, who was it? Rico Flores, I think the weekend of the 17th will be there. So a lot of guys already kind of making their plans. Caleb Downs, I believe, is scheduled his as well.
First weekend of June. Yep, third through the 5th. I think whatever
that's the 5th. So Downs will be there as well. So it's gonna be interesting to see how all those guys play out. If you have any questions, we'll stay on here for another couple minutes. If you got any questions on YouTube, you can go ahead and throw them our way. Any recruiting relating questions, we'd be happy to answer them. But Jed, while we're waiting to see if any of those come in. Go ahead and give you guys a preview of what's going to be coming up on the UGA Sports Vault, some pieces we got working on, things like that.
Yeah, we had some stories today. I spoke with a young man who I don't want to butcher his name. Let me read it. Adapoju Adebawore from North Kansas City, a edge, a 4-star 23 guy. He visited for G-Day, talked to him, and really likes Coach Uzodiribe. He's another one of those guys that's coming back for an official in June, I believe, also the weekend of the 17th. So he's a name to watch. And tomorrow going to South Paulding, see Madden Sanker and Jamarian Wilcox, and then Wednesday going to Milton, seeing Bryce Thorne. And Bryce Thorne's got UGA in his top 5. That could be another guy that they could theoretically
Robert Billings.
starter for. Robert Billings as well. So, just like I say every week, if you're not on the vault already, then I just can't help you.
Yeah, and Robert Billings was one of the guys that I put in the Dirty Dozen as a new kind of feature that we have over as guys who are 3 stars or under, who are just really good cultural fits, and guys who Georgia's high on and could end up actually signing in this class. Of course, a couple of commits that they have that kind of fit that bill already is Lawson Lucky and Seven Cloud that are on that list. Jamarian Harkless is on that list. Lots of guys, Robert Billings, and even a couple quarterbacks. What happens if Georgia does miss on Arch Manning? Well, a lot of these high-profile 2023 guys are going to be gone, but guys like Tyler Jefferson and Kason Wiseman are going to be there. Does Georgia circle back around and extend an offer there to one of those guys who are both tough as nails, dual threat guys, have good arms? So it'll be interesting to see. But I think we've got one from Stet's flip phone here. I've seen Eric Gilbert already projected as a top 5 pick for next year's draft. What's y'all's thoughts on that? I think that Eric Gilbert is supremely talented, but let's let him actually make it through a football season before we put. I feel like life is about managing expectations, whether that's marriage, whether that's at work, whether that's whatever. Managing expectations, right? And I feel like that is an unfair thing to put on that kid right now. Trent, your thoughts?
I think if you were looking at a top 5 pick, he's on the defensive line and not necessarily offense. He with what Georgia just did, but Gilbert has first round potential. There's no doubt about it. He showed that at LSU as a freshman, but taking a year off from football, and what have we seen of Gilbert to this point? We've seen the spring game. That's pretty much it. So to project him as a top 5 pick would be pretty tough right now. But is the potential there? Of course. He's got loads of potential. Him and Brock Bowers could absolutely just terrorize defenses next year. And I think that's why Georgia will be right back in the hunt for SEC championship and playoffs next year. But to put him as a top 5 pick right now, I think that's a little reach at this point.
I agree. I mean, you got to think, hold on, before I get to this question, you got to think Nakobe Dean, who is literally one of the best pure football players I've seen for the University of Georgia, and is unbelievable off the field and engineering school. I mean, they do so much research and find little nitpick things. There's a lot in that background there that could, shy people away from a top 5 pick. All right, a Cat Dog. Any idea why Jamari Sawyer gets drafted so late when he manhandled Aiden Hutchinson and threw him around like a rag doll? For sure that video kind of went viral there on that specific play. But Jed, Jed and Trent, whoever wants to answer, I feel like maybe the body type of Jamari, isn't exactly screaming, hey, this is a stud NFL tackle.
Yeah, I think it's intangibles. You're looking at. He doesn't necessarily have the length of Isaiah Wynn, so you're looking at a different type prospect. You're looking at a pure interior guy who didn't have a lot of film in college and in the interior. Yes, he dominated Hutchinson, but how much of a role would that play in NFL? I'm not sure any, because he's going to be interior. Now, with that being said, I think Jamari Sawyer is still in the 6th round. I think he could have a very good NFL career. He is very good, but at the same time, these NFL guys are looking at intangibles, and that's one of the big things we look at with Quay Walker, just his pure size and athleticism and stuff like that. So Lewis Seen's another one. He wasn't great in coverage, but just look at the size and look at the speed, look at the closing speed, and look at his ability to hit. That's what they look at more. And Jamari Salyer just doesn't have that right now, or doesn't have that. Doesn't have the length to play tackle, and he doesn't really have the body type to play on the outside. So you're looking at offensive guard, and maybe he can prove some doubters wrong.
Jed, you do more team coverage than both Trent and I in terms of during the week. It always seemed like Jamari Salyer was kind of on that injured list as well throughout the week too. I mean, he was banged up a lot in college, missed some time, so the medical could have played a part in that as well.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, perfect example you just mentioned, Kobe, that's a big reason why he fell, is the injury he had. But it seems like, because like Trent said, did I expect Jamari Salyer to go in the first 2 rounds? No, but to have him go in the 6th round with what he was able to do in college, I mean, all those picks the Falcons had. I mean, Lord knows how bad the Falcons just needed interior line help. So I personally thought he would have been a perfect pick for the Falcons in the 5th round as a guy with big upside, if you develop him a guard. And they did go with Justin Schaefer, and obviously another guy who played in Athens. But I don't know, man. I don't have either I'm not smart enough to be an NFL GM, or I'm too smart to be an NFL GM. I don't know.
If you'd have told me Justin Schaefer would have went before Jamari Salyer, I would have called you an idiot.
Exactly.
You'd have told me that the Falcons would have drafted an inside linebacker a couple picks before Nakobe Dean got picked, and they picked some guy from like Montana East Technical College or something like that. I mean, good Lord, I don't know. That kid may end up being an all-pro, whoever he is. I don't follow the names closely if it's not a Georgia name pertaining to what we're doing over here at UGASports.com. But
it's
man,
almost like,
that was
almost
bad.
like the Falcons came back, in the 6th and 7th round and drafted two Georgia guys just to mend things.
They saw season ticket sales getting pulled right and left, and they were like, "Well, we got to stop the bleeding."
Well, they had that tweet. I don't know if it was for Fitzpatrick or Schaefer. It was like, "Yeah, we got ourselves a couple dogs," and it's like, "Yeah, but not the one everyone was screaming for you to get." Like, you slept on it Friday night, seeing how pissed everyone was, and then they came back and got Fitzpatrick and Schaefer on day 3.
You missed the dogs in the 3rd and 4th round, but you settled for the
exactly.
Don't worry, they're going to go out and get Jake Fromm in free agency. Really make people happy. That'll be what goes on there. But guys, this has been a great show. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Like I said, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, give us a like, share on social media. We'll have the podcast up tomorrow. For Jed May and Trent Smallwood, I am Blaine Gilmer. We'll catch you next Monday night on UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts.